They came to us from Oxford, Michigan, about 5 years ago. Abbey, and their 3 daughters. They have 3 children, an older and a younger, who's, I believe, in 7th and 8th grade. They have since moved to Prosper. Anyways, Abbey came to us in our program here at Stafford as a young 6th grader, very shy. And some of you, Miss Overstreet, I think, had her, and she was very, very shy. Our older said, my sister's coming. So when we have her up in the lab, very quiet, very shy. So she spent practically 3 years coming up there, working with us in the learning lab. And she was very shy, very quiet, walking around campus. And then we started to get to know Abbey, and then she slowly came out of her shell. Now, being from Michigan, we had some common ground there. And then all of a sudden, Abbey would bring in these books, and it was The Who. Who? You're just a kid. How would you know The Who? I said, these are my bands. And then I got to know Abbey a little more, and her mother and father, and we had a lot of things in common. For one thing, this is Abbey. She was learning to speak Chinese. I speak Chinese. She learns to speak Polish. So all these wonderful things. And right along with that, or in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, Abbey starts to come out of her shell. She's in theater, and she was performing plays. And by the time 8th grade hit, we have this lovely lady who is just, you'd never know it was the same 6th grader. Anyways, fast forward a couple years on, and she's at Prosper. She sends myself, Miss Mays, and Scott this wonderful video of her public speaking about how teachers can help autistic children in the classroom. And that's what she's here to speak about. So please give a hand to her.
So as said earlier, my name is Abbey Childress, and I'm so excited to be here, especially as a former Stafford Spartan. This school means a lot to me. Now, before I launch into the presentation, I have a pretty cool picture to show all of y'all. Now, I want all of you to take a nice close look at this, and I would like for a member of the audience to just tell me what they see, the first thing that they notice. As I listen to the responses around the room, I can hear a lot of different responses. If we were to ask each individual person, I'm sure it would be a 50-50 split between the duck and the bunny. Regardless of what you see, both are in the image. It's simply a matter of perspective. Let's now put ourselves into a hypothetical situation and use our imaginations to send ourselves back to middle school. You're sitting in your classroom, and say you see the bunny, but all of your other classmates, they see a duck, including your teacher. Therefore, if you have enough nerve to see the bunny, you'll fail all your tests, you'll feel excluded and isolated from your peers, even though you never did anything wrong. That's what it's like for students with autism within the education system. My goal for today is to share some insight and perspective as to what it's like being a student with autism within the education system, and provide y'all with helpful tools and resources to make your classrooms a successful environment for all different kinds of learners and thinkers. Autism is something that affects your entire body. Therefore, I'm going to explain the aspects of it by using our body senses. First, we have sight. Up here, I have a very common symptom of autism, which is a lack of eye contact. But please understand that we're not making a lack of eye contact because we don't want to look at you or we don't like socializing. It's due to something called sensory integration disorder, which is basically an over or under reaction to all the stimulus that goes on around us. As you can imagine, that makes our world kind of crazy. So us looking away is a natural technique to help cope with all the craziness and de-stress ourselves. Another reason why the world can feel so hectic at times is because we're very straightforward, one-way thinkers. So things that involve multitasking can really present a struggle to us. We see multitasking a lot in school, especially when we're note-taking. Up here I have the classic story arc, which I'm sure most of you are very familiar with, and look at it, it's clear, it's concise, organized. If you had to follow along, I'm sure you could easily. Unfortunately, that's not what the note-taking experience is like for autistic students. You may have something that looks a little more like this. And even though this may seem exaggerated, this is often pretty accurate to what we may see. Because our brains simply aren't designed for multitasking, the task of having to look at the board, look at our paper, absorb the information, organize everything, make sure that what we have down on the paper matches what's actually on the board, that's a lot for us to juggle. So up here I have some tips and tricks as to how to combat these issues. First, provide pre-filled in notes. This has really helped my grades skyrocket. I'm able to just sit there comfortably in class and listen to what the teacher has to say instead of stressing out about all these different things going around me. Split projects up. Projects can seem daunting and scary, especially when there's so many steps to it. So if you have a long project that, say, extends for a week, I know I had a lot of very long projects in English class, you can divide the project up into smaller bits and present it as, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. Seek students in least distracting areas. Think about in your classrooms. Where are there a lot of posters? Where are there the talkative students? Where is there a window? Anything that might be a possible distractor, sit the student as far away as possible from that, preferably in the front of the classroom so they can concentrate on the main task at hand. Extra assistance with organization. Organization does not come naturally for us, especially when we're in a stressful environment. So if you don't already, make sure you have some sort of designated binder or something for that specific class and do regular routine checkups on it to make sure everything has its place, everything is in order, so you don't have to deal with the phone calls of Johnny B is doing all of his work in class, but when it comes time to turn something in, everything goes missing. This is a favorite of mine, is utilizing color coding and spatial accommodations. So say for algebra teachers, you have your x variable, you have your y variable. Make everything with the x variable blue and make everything with the y variable pink. For spatial accommodations, say you have a multiple choice test and you have your 4 answers, A, B, C, and D. We tend to look at a piece of paper and have things look like they're moving, dancing, jumping around. It's hard to stabilize the words that are on the paper, so maybe make a test in a larger font or put more spacing between each answer. It's also been scientifically proven that if you use a piece of paper that's not white, most commonly a light blue color, it will actually help to stabilize those letters and prevent all the moving and dancing around. And I know this doesn't have a lot to do with visualization, but it does have to do with the fact that we're straight-minded thinkers. Avoid sarcasm. We are very literal. So say you're an English teacher and you assign 10 pages of reading every night to your students. It's a routine thing that you do all the time. And you have that one smart aleck kid in your class who raises their hand for the 1,000,000th time and asks you how many pages you have to read that night. So sarcastically, you apply 50. You have to read 50 pages. And everyone else gets that it's a joke. You're not actually being serious. But your autistic student uses it as, that's what you said. Those are the words that came out of your mouth. Therefore, if you say it, I'm going to do it. So they're going to go home and stress themselves out, reading 5 times as much as they had to, because that's what you said. That's what you're going to do. Now we have hearing. Those of us with autism, we have really, really sensitive hearing. Events like pep rallies, classroom parties, even transitioning from one class to another, it can be uncomfortable. Providing a schedule is a really good way to help deal with this. If there's something in the day like a pep rally that's out of the normal, it's good to let an autistic student know because we gravitate towards structure so they can know exactly when everything is happening and plan ahead so they can know an alternative space they might want to go to. Allow students to go ahead of transitions. Obviously, we know the halls get crazy. 2 minutes or so earlier so they can just get ahead of the rush. Alter practice time for extracurriculars. Extracurriculars start to become really prominent in middle school. We have theater, which is what I did. We have band, we have sports. But because we have such sensitive senses, our days feel a lot longer. So if your practice goes until 5:30, it might be okay to let them out at 5, or at least provide a nice quiet space they can go to. Also, I wanted to mention this about lunch. The cafeteria is wild. Even if it seems wild to you, just imagine what it would be like with sensory integration disorder. So whether it's the library, a room that's not being used, the learning lab, whatever, it might be a really viable option for someone who is sensitive to all that noise. And allow sensory breaks throughout the day. I have an awesome idea for teachers. I know all of y'all have to run errands a lot, whether you have to give a calculator to someone or get a book from another teacher. Send an autistic student. It's a great idea to let them move around during class, kind of split up the schedule for them a little bit. And on top of that, because we're very rule-abiding people, you send us somewhere, we're going to come back. We're not going to we're not going to take a bathroom break and then poke our head in other classrooms. We're not going to try to sneak outside. We're going to come back. We'll be fine. And other sensory breaks too. Letting them play on the computer, letting them have extra free time, read, just walk around, kind of whatever the student gravitates towards too. Tactile. Tactile is a really big thing with autism. I know y'all like to wear jeans to school. Jeans are nice to wear. However, I didn't start wearing jeans until maybe about the 7th grade because the feeling of jeans and denim on my body was such a rough sensation, and others didn't understand why I wasn't reacting to it like other people were. Even though sensory with tactile is a big thing, there's another thing I want to mention with the hands, and that's motor skills. We have weakened motor skill activity, and it not only has to do with the muscles in our hand, but also that idea of multitasking, using 5 fingers at once to complete one task. So I have a little activity I planned. Could I have a volunteer is anyone wearing a button-up jacket in here? If we don't, that's okay. Is anyone wearing tennis shoes? All right, I saw you first. Oh, yeah. All right, so what I'm going to have you do is put these oven mitts on. And as you can notice with the oven mitt, your fingers are constricted. You can't use all of them, really. And so your task is untie your shoes and then tie them again.
Okay, one more time.
That's the easy part.
So as you can observe, this is probably taking her longer than it usually does. Could she possibly accomplish this task? But see, it's harder because not all 5 of her fingers are working together at once. And that's what's great about it.
Like our kids on the floor.
Struggle is real. Okay, can I get that?
You can give up. It's okay. Round of applause. Good job. So here are some tips and tricks we can accomplish with motor skill and tactile. Lend extra help with fine motor activities. As just displayed, we have some difficulties in that area. So anything involving scissors, cutting anything out, gluing something different, so we may need a bit of extra time to learn how to navigate the task we have to do and learn how to adjust it for ourselves. And it's not going to take the same amount of time it's going to take our peers. Another thing I wanted to mention just really quickly, I kind of forgot to put it in, socialization, especially when it comes to things like the lunchroom and group projects. I really, really recommend, if you see an autistic student who is struggling with socialization, try and pair them up with a buddy. Because oftentimes the cafeteria feels scary, not only because it's loud, but because sometimes you don't know who to sit with because you don't know how to make any friends yet. So if you find a nice student who can help guide them, hang out with them, introduce them to some new people, help them with their social skills, they can walk into a group project or the cafeteria and know, I have a designated person or a designated group of people I can comfortably go to and easily converse and have a good time with. I want to encourage all of you to look for the symptoms of autism within your classroom, because not all students with autism are diagnosed or are receiving any sort of special services. Some of the greatest minds of history, names like Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton, have been speculated to have autism because some of our most innovative thinkers were people who thought differently than everybody else did. The talents and abilities of autistic students are just as valid as everyone else's, but we can't extend upon those talents unless they are provided the special resources and tools they need in order to become successful individuals. I want to thank all of you so much for listening to me speak today. It was such an honor to get to come back to Stafford and see a bunch of wonderful faces that I love and know.